everyone.
So now we go live, and John is coming.
Hello, John.
Okay, Winnie, I will start with the introduction. Yeah. So, good evening. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I'm Lucas, and I'm one of the curators of Uroboros Festival, and I'm very happy to introduce you Winnie soon at this prime time of this festival. But before that, let me say sorry for changing the event link at the last moment. We had a troubling times with the Zoom application, unfortunately, and it was a consequence of these troubles. So we are sorry for that. Let's back to Winnie. Winnie Soon is a Hong Kong artist researcher currently living in Denmark and working at the intersection of media and computational art, software studies, culture studies, and code practice. Her artworks and research examine the cultural implications of technologies, especially how computational processes and infrastructure underwrite our experiences. And she is interested in processes such as automated censorship, data circulation, real-time processing, invisible infrastructure, and the culture of code practice. Winnie's artworks and projects have been presented at museums, festivals, public libraries, universities, and conferences across Europe, Asia, and America, including institutions as ZKM in Karlsruhe, MIT Gallery in Melbourne, Transmediale Berlin, Stuttgarter Filmwinter, Wrocław Media Art Biennale, the Wrong New Digital Art Biennale, Hong Kong Microwave International Media Arts Festival, Ars Electronica in Linz, and many others. Winnie's current research focuses on critical, technical, and feminist practice, and she is working on 2 books. The first one is titled Aesthetic Programming, and second one, Fix My Code. In 2016, she defended her PhD thesis called Executing Liveness. In the work, she draws together the methods of reflexive practice, close reading, iterative trials, and code gazing in the fields of artistic research, critical code studies, software studies, and media archaeology. Her thesis also explores barely visible code operation and considers the cultural implication of the reading, writing, running, and executing of code, which she refers as reflexive code practice. And I think that this topic is also related to today's workshop, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, Winnie, thank you for being part of Uroboros Festival. The stage is yours.
Thank you, Lucas. Hello, everyone. I just post a link on the chat. So this is sort of like the main site of our workshop today, which include the things that I'm going to talk about and also some links and tools that we will try to use. So I will now also share screen as well. Nadia, so maybe you don't have the link. So is it, so for any newcomers to join in, then I have to post this link as well, right?
I will do it.
Oh, you will do it, okay. So what I'm going to do now is to share my screen so that we are all on the same page. All right, so I assume, okay, so I have to move this away. So that's not too strange to see. Okay, and I have to have my chat box open as well, just in case. If you want to type something here. Okay. You know, it's kind of messy on screen. So, so you all have the links with the GitHub Markdown file. So today I want to sort of like divide into like 2 sessions, I would say. The first one is more like getting you to sort of get a sense or tune into this kind of what is vocable code and what does it mean by feminist coding or feminist perspective in terms of thinking about poetry, software, and infrastructure. And then the second part, and I assume this is sort of put it up on the description, which is like we are playing with our voice, our body, and try to do a performance together. I have no idea how it works online, although I have experience in the physical setting. which I will talk about it in a minute. But there are a few things that I think may be, so I'm now at 0, hello world, right? This screen, maybe I enlarge a little bit. Yeah, hello world. So I think Lucas just now talked about, because I born and raised in Hong Kong. This is quite important as well to shape who I am and why I'm interested in language and code, which I will explain later. So currently I'm working at Aarhus University. I teach a course called Aesthetic Programming for the past 5 years, and now finishing the book Lukash also mentioned about. It's called Aesthetic Programming. So if you scroll at the bottom, you will also find some of the notes there as well, like the book, as especially the chapter point 2 related to vocable code. What is it actually? Why is it vocable? Right? All this. I mentioned in the email I sent to you before, saying that I have sort of my first time now running the workshop online. And the first time actually date back to 2017. That was, so you see the screen where there were around 8 participants. The workshop was like 5 hours, and the theme was called Feminist Coding in P5.js. Can software be feminist? Right? So I was really interested in thinking about, like, to take it explicitly, like P5.js, if some of you know a little bit coding or know about the founder of P5.js, who is Laura McCarthy from US. So she sort of create this community of P5.js JavaScript as a way to make explicit about accessibility and inclusivity and diversity around code. And the essence is really about how can we think about opening up coding into different domains beyond professionalism. It's also something around how can we like code in a creative way, right? For example. So that's also somehow inspired me to think about, like, what does it mean if I make it explicit, if I frame the workshop as feminist coding, and what does it mean by software, whether it can be feminist, what does it mean, right? And so the work vocable code, which I will introduce later on, it was first introduced in this setting, in the setting of just only 8 people and people who are interested to work with code, actually. So in that sense, vocable has a pedagogical dimension. The work itself, one of the constraints that I set for myself is it has to be legible, it has to be readable, and it has to be short, because not everyone in the workshop that they know coding. So I want the audience feel welcoming and also be able to, you know, tune in as well. So conceptually, so I mentioned is like, what does it mean if I take feminist coding explicitly, or even at least just by putting out the phrase feminist coding, and to think about code otherwise, and hopefully not to lock into the discussion of how code is useful, how this apply to the real world. Of course, those are important, but how can we think otherwise, right? But of course, there's also another agenda, is to think about how to encourage women, non-binary, LGBTQ+, and other people who feel there is a space to work and feel safe as well, right? So some of you might think, oh, okay, this is like a common issue, or is it still the case because there's a lot more women or other feminists who are also interested in coding? But the interesting thing is that because I have been teaching the course Aesthetic Programming, still I have students with comments like, the course opened up my mind in terms of like coding beyond gentleman club, you know? So it's still literally like, this is how the student wrote to me about how they usually thought about coding. And also when you look at like contemporary tech firms environment, like Facebook, CEO of Facebook, Airbnb, Amazon, Apple, TikTok, Microsoft, Instagram, eBay, Alibaba, or even Zoom, right? The CEO are also like very male dominant, who lead the tech environment as well. Right? So this leads me to, of course, to think about like how can we communicate programming differently, and perhaps poetry could be one of the way to think about it poetically, but also politically as well. So I have been, this time I need to get my chat box because I want to post some link to you as well. So I want to share some links to you, which is sort of some people who really influence my thinking. So for example, like when I talk about feminist perspective, I've been influenced by a lot of artists and programmers, as well as theorists who are working, also thinking similar kind of questions. So like the link that I sent to you, Tara McPherson, who's a scholar, she wrote a book around feminists. Nadia, you have that. Feminists in a software lab, differences plus design. Also like, so again, it's like this, what does it mean by feminism in the software and infrastructural technological context, right? And then the other book, I don't have the link here, but you can search around, which is highly influential to this work, VOCABLE Code, which is written by Jeff Cox, the book name Speaking Code, Coding as Aesthetic and Political Expression. So this is also somehow foreground the sense like coding is not something neutral, it's also ideological. It has a particular other types of function beyond just executing your thoughts, being just a tool, but it also conveys certain kinds of expression. And of course, the other person that also influenced me a lot that I mentioned is Lauren McCarthy, who the creator of P5JS. And of course, there are many other feminists and organizations such as the Feminist Software Foundation. So all of this add up together, like push me to think about how can we think about code differently or otherwise. Right? So, so this was the first time 5 hours and really talk about code in a also technical manner, but also conceptually and also performing together with these participants. And then last year, I also did another workshop in Austria, physically, 90 minutes in a physical setting with around 30 participants. So at the end, what we made was like a duet performance. So we performed together by reading source code aloud, which was really fun. I'm surprised actually how it worked out. And this time, within 2 hours, it's a challenge because it's also my first time making it work online, and also I also developed some tools and see how it works and how we might able to perform together. So because we don't have many people here, so I'm just wondering whether you will be up to, I try to stop share screen for a moment. You will be up to like say a few words about yourself or your name so that we get a sense of who you are and why you are interested in this workshop. Maybe we start with the chronological order. Maybe Alexa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Alexa. I'm a programmer, artist, something in between, with a background in AI and fine arts. And right now I am just actually since 2 weeks, I'm running a AI and robotics lab, or actually we're creating it. We're just starting at an art school in Germany called Burg Giebichenstein in Halle. And yeah, that's probably the most exciting thing going on right now.
Yeah, thank you. And then we have Elspita, right? Am I correctly pronounce your name? We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
It will be better if you will unmute your mic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Elżbieta.
Yeah,
you got it.
Yeah, that's good.
So I'm from Czech Republic. I'm here on a recommendation. And I actually do not program, or I'm not very aware of how to do that stuff, but at the same time, I am interested in the feminist topics, and I have a background in architecture, and I'm one of the co-founder of like a local architecture female group.
Yeah. Great, thanks. And we have Daniel.
Hi, I'm Daniel Thumpkin. I'm in New York. I write esoteric codes, which covers critical code studies and software studies and people doing interesting things with code and art. And I design programming languages.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. And yeah, am I pronounce your name correctly again? L or Ella?
Eyal.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Eyal.
Yeah.
So I'm a new media artist and a machine learning researcher from Tel Aviv, Israel. And I'm interested in generative art, as well as making these tools accessible to other artists and using them to have activist interventions, especially now that everything is online.
Yeah. Thank you. We have Julie and John.
Hey, yeah. I'm Yuli. This is John. I'm a design researcher and experience designer, and I did a little bit of coding a few years ago, where I was mainly interested in generative art, and I really like your lightning talk, and so this is why I wanted to join the workshop.
Okay, thank you.
And I'm John, also experienced designer and researcher and puzzle designer. I heard about the talk from Yuli and I'm interested in the topic. So, yeah.
Welcome. And then we have Kim from Cultural. Yeah.
Hi. Hi, I'm based in Glasgow in Scotland. I'm an artist and composer. I've done a small amount of coding, but not really. But my work kind of deals with the kind of intersection between technology and society. So I was interested today.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. And then Nadia.
Yeah, hi. I'm zooming in from Stockholm, Sweden, and I'm an interaction designer slash artist slash researcher, and I've been exploring kind of the intersection of feminism and technology before, specifically looking at digital technologies concerning women's health. But now I'm working in a software research group at my university, and I'm working on software art, so super relevant to this talk.
Thank you. And Natalia. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I had to remember to unmute. Hi, I'm Natalia. I'm from Brazil, but I'm based in Denmark. I know Winnie's work, but I didn't have the chance to be in the workshop before, so it was a great chance right now. I'm a UX researcher, designer, and I have a strong interest in technology and feminism and this. And I'm very excited to see the workshop.
Thank you. And Nina?
Yeah, hi, I'm Nina. I'm from France, but I'm studying in Germany right now. And I'm studying communication design and a little bit of media art. And I've done quite a bit of website coding the last years for my studies, but I'm self-taught, and I've been thinking about feminist code and just feminist software for a while, because I've noticed that there's not a lot of women in my university that do a lot of coding. So it's
also in my university as well, I have to say. So it's a common issue.
And most of the things we do are self-taught, so I think it's interesting.
And then we have the last one, Sean.
Hello, I'm Sean. I'm zooming in from Singapore. I am an artist researcher, and my background is in performance studies. I run I'm part of a queer feminist space in Singapore called Softball Studs. I think one of the kind of inquiries I have at this point is looking at the relations of medical surveillance, embodiment, and also like forms of queering those kinds of technologies.
All right. Thanks. Wow, a diverse background. I'm excited. I hope you are the same as mine as well. Are you still seeing my screen right now, or I have stopped my screen? What are you seeing my screen here, or you are seeing my GitHub site?
Your screen.
Okay.
You're not sharing right now.
I'm not sharing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I go back to the sharing. Thank you. All right. So for those of you who are late, I post the link again on the chat room so that everyone will at least follow it and also able to click on the link and also the information as well. So next, I'm not going to talk for 2 hours, of course, but just I feel it's also a good idea to sort of zoom in into the work to sort of think about what might be feminist coding, or how might we think about coding otherwise, or what does it really mean by queer code, or what I mean by queer code. I kind of like this term throughout the last 3 years, especially working with this project. So the image that you see here with the two screen, this is like an installation version of VOCABLE code. So it's always side by side. It always with two screens. One is the source code. You can see on your right-hand side, the source code. And then the left-hand side is, I call it as like executed version. So which means it is running based on the source code on the other side, right? So in a way, it is important conceptually that they have to be running side by side, or they have to be an explicit interface for me. So I position VOCABLE code as both here, both a piece of software art and code work. So some of you might not tune into, like, may not aware of this term, like maybe electronic literature or code work. So this is a term coined by Alan Soden in 2001. The term code work, you can think about it as like code poetry. So it's about like mixing computer language with semantic language, with natural language, to think about what does it mean by this mixing, and how can we convey this kind of poetic qualities of this kind of tension and constraint. Because I do see there's a tension actually when I have to write a piece of source code, but at the same time I have to constantly think about if I have to read aloud. So what are the things I need to change in order to make sense, in order to read, or to make sense for the audience. So you will look at it more closely later on. But just to give you a sense how it goes for an installation setting. So in that sense, so it is simultaneously as a poem, as a code poetry, as a code work, but also at the same time it is executed, it can be run. You can listen to this piece of work as a software art, as a piece of software art. And then, as I mentioned, they have to be, I actually have this link. Or maybe everyone can click on this link as well. The double-decker one, VOCABLE Code Educational.
Where, and that
so if you also run this piece of work, is a special web version that I developed especially for workshop setting, or for me to do teaching especially. So you can get a sense of, on the left-hand side, you can see which is a piece of code, which for those, some of you who are not into coding or who don't know coding, is fine. It doesn't really matter, because you can just treat it as a piece of like English language, like let with pride, let what is queer, let queer rights equal square bracket. You know, you can just treat it as natural language. And then this is what I call on the other side. That is how it runs, and then you hear the voices, and also there are different statements appear on the other side. So, but we will work on this together later, because this is also a live coding interface that you can tinker the code immediately, that we will try later. So, but continue about the conceptual aspect about the work, what I mentioned earlier on, the two sides, they have to be displayed side by side, showing both the poem and the executed version of the code. And I consider them as critical interfaces. In order to think about the dichotomy, we usually have around like this front end interface, or this kind of back end source code, right? Or visual design and technical code, right? So it's usually in a very binary distinction, especially in the IT sector, right? Or in the industry. Right? So in that sense, placing the two screens side by side is a way to also foreground the source code as a critical interface. It's not something that is hidden. And I want to also show it to the public as well. And then the other thing, another version, other than this live version that you just saw, do you see me as well? Do you see me holding this book? Or no? I think
yes,
I have.
We can see you.
Yep, okay. Yeah. So this is my messy background. So I also developed this physical book, which is like with all the voices that are part of this work, and then also with the source code. So this is like a score, right? Like like a score or script that usually I will perform live with Jeff, who developed this together with me. And also there's some conceptual aspect here with the writing, and then the other side is a piece of code, code snippet from VOCABLE code that we usually perform around half an hour. So if you are interested, you can also go to this link as well, which I have put in on the GitHub as well. And then the other thing, so this is like different version, right, of VOCABLE code. But then I want to go a little bit into around the thinking of voices and language about this work. So VOCABLE code, the name itself, you can get a sense is about voices, is voicing something, right? So I also consider it as an audiovisual literature. You can see like there's some text that you see on the screen, but at the same time, you can hear the voice as audio as well. And these are the voices I have collected through my network, my friends, friends, or people from the internet. So I asked people to participate, completing the sentence that is started with queer is, and then they continue the sentence, right? So just now, when you look at the two-screen live version, you see a lot of statements, right? Like not now, not close. Queer is not a manifesto, for example. So there are a lot of this kind of statements. So they are all responding to the thinking about what is queer. Queer is what, right, to them. And I especially, I like the one saying, queer is, I like chocolate. So it's really like having different voices play out in the pieces. And my job is also like how to play this voice on the interface that is sort of seems like a literature in a way, and one voice overlay the other. Sometimes they simultaneously appear on the screen, this kind of the balance between the randomness and the control. I think some of you are interested in generative art, so you might understand this dilemma, like you want to give control to the machine, but also at the same time, you want to have some kinds of control, this dilemma. So the central idea of this work is about queer code, which examining the notion of queerness in computer coding through the interplay of different human and non-human voice, I would say. So when you click on this link, so on the markdown, voices and languages. So this one. So the voices.json, so it's like a text file, a particular online format to store all different statements from the participants. So if you look at my screen now, you can see these are all the people who involved the project, and there are 2 statements, maximum 2 statements. So they are all start with queer is, like queer is fixing the binary. Queer is interesting, sometimes lonely. Queer is intricacies of gray. Queer is whatever they need to be, right? There are also something I find is also quite interesting. Like I try with Google algorithm as well, like Google search, right? And then they have the auto completion, right? When you type queer is, and then it will auto complete the sentence, right? So this is what it complete as queer is not a manifesto. Queer is here, right? So that's Google algorithm who also participate in this work as well, and many other people who think about queerness in a different ways. So you can sort of get a sense on like the code itself, the program of VOCABLE code is constantly getting the statements and also the voice file from the server in order to run the program so that it can display on the screen and then select a particular voice to play, the voice file, right? And going back to thinking about voices and language, right? I think for me, it's always been thinking about how coding is comparable or operated as language. I'm now at this point, coding as writing. How coding is comparable or operated as writing. And recently, Annette Weiss has written a book called Coding Literacy. And it's a really good book on MIT Press. And she also like lay out like in history, like writing and reading as a literacy. But now in the 21st century, right, we talk about like, oh, okay, coding is the 21st century that we have to learn, must learn skill. But what does it really mean by literacy, right? And the book she has written really make this kind of reflection on like tracing back to historical writing and how this inform our thinking around coding literacy. And then the other thing I find is also interesting about language structure. I always find coding and language are very related, but also very different as well. How language structure influence the way we think. So I give you an example, right? So for example, I know some European language with gender objects, anything like a pen or a mouse with a gender, right? And more closely to my identity, I'm coming from Hong Kong, I speak Cantonese, right? And one of the things that I recognize, the problem that I have when I have to speak English is the problem of pronoun. So because in Chinese or Cantonese speaking, when we have to introduce a person or when we have to name a person, at least speaking wise, we don't have this distinction of she and he. There's no this distinction. But in English, when we talk about like Lukash, okay, he is going to introduce me, right? He was introduced me, right? So I need to add another layer when I process the language is to first identify whether the person I want to talk is a man or is a woman, and then I fit in the pronoun and then to continue my sentence, right? But a lot of the time I actually pronounce wrongly because I guess it was because the intuition of speaking actually runs faster than the brain processing. So a lot of the cases I just say like she, oh, okay. But then, oh, okay, I'm wrong, it's actually he. So I find like language structure is very interesting in a way of influence how the way we think and process stuff. And similarly, going to the next point is like from language, we kind of know there are a lot of different structure and also shape a particular way of thinking and speaking, right? But then what does it mean by the underlying structure of computer programming language, right? Programming language, such as like, for some of you who have programming experience, you might know this kind of Boolean logic, right? Something that is true, that is false, right? And also very well-defined concrete conditional statements, right? So if I am hungry, I'm going to eat something. Else, if I'm thirsty, I drink a coffee. Else, I'm not hungry and I'm not thirsty, I will go to take a nap, right? It's very concrete in a way that when we have to program, it has to be as clear as possible. And we also tend to like to use a lot of integer over decimal, and also commonly use variable names such as x, single y, or even I, like I++, right, in a for loop, right? So there are a lot of different structure underlying, and I'm interested to think about how this influence, especially when we talk about coding as a literacy in the 21st century, when everyone have to tune in this kind of computational thinking. So what are the potential consequences? And also some of the computer command I find is super interesting and violent, such as abort, right? And slave and master, right? So this kind of hierarchy and politics of language. So all this sort of like helped me to sort of like using this work as a way to think through these questions, and also like set up as a constraint, because if you look at the source code just now with the live coding, I try to this one, like,
whatever they need to be.
Okay, so like I intentionally put in a lot of decimal, like when you have to pronounce it, like for example, line 17, let's acquiesce int bracket random bracket 2.34387 comma 4.34387 close bracket semicolon, right? So so I kind of like interested in the way of how we pronounce it and how we think about this as like as kind of strange, you know, this kind of strangeness. I want to play with this strangeness. So and go back to the last point that I want to talk about is the voice, again, like speaking code, VOCABLE code, coding as political expression. And I put up two sentences that I draw from Jeff Cox's book, Speaking Code, Coding as Aesthetic and Political Expression. And he states like computer programs have bodies in the sense that other materialities and meanings are deeply interwoven, and this necessarily exists as part of wider social relations. And the second quote is, through the connection to speech, programs can be called into actions as utterance that have wider political resonance. They express themselves as if possessing a voice. So the book, Speaking Code, there is a chapter called VOCABLE Code, and it's directly influenced how I name this piece of work. Because if we think about code in relation to language, there's double side, right? Double coding in a sense. On the one hand, it is instructing, it's a command, instruct the computer to do something. But on the other hand, it is also human readable language, especially in like higher level programming language. As you can see from the things that I have written, it's also like, I try to make it like you are able to pronounce it in a fun way as well. But at this point, do you have question that you want to clarify or want to ask in relation to?
I have a question maybe.
Yeah.
Can you say something about the relationship of the code on the left and the sentences popping up on the right?
Okay. So now you are on this screen, right? That's the live coding version. So this is actually also the next exercise as well. So what does it mean? I can just simply maybe change something, then you will immediately know it. And also the size. So what I mean by the relationship between the two is, so this is a piece of source code which changed the way of how the code executes. So you can see a lot of statements here. So if I enable the voice
of gray,
transformation,
not only gay, interesting, sometimes lonely,
infinite.
So you can see like how the texts are being displayed and how it runs, because you can see, for example, like there is a sentence called not now, not close, and it will move up and suddenly it will go down. And also the coloring of the text will change over time and become blurred. But if you reload it, then it will just resume the original setting. So what it means, that the relationship between the two is how you see the text are running is based on the source code running on the left-hand side. Is it clear?
Yes, I was thinking more about these like a bit more fluffy, poetic phrasings, if they have also an effect on the visuals on the right.
You mean the left? Not, because right now on the right-hand side, they are all the statements that you saw on the JSON file, right? Remember just now with all the statements. So in that sense, this piece of source code is controlling or commanding how the program will display the text and play the voice. So on the other hand, this, if you just only look at the left-hand side, we will try it out later actually, is to try to read aloud of this line of code. So usually most of my audience, like at the very beginning, they were very hesitant. And also at the same time, they feel the code is quite alienated, especially you don't have any programming experience, right? But when you try to read aloud and try to pronounce it, and it's so strange, I find, like when you read the code, when you write the code, and when you speak about the code, it's actually give you another different taste of how you might sort of get a sense of how the code is running. Shall we try? Because this is also sort of our next exercise as well. Is like every one of us try to just speak for 4 or 5 sentences, and then to sort of get a sense of what does it mean by this kind of bodily voice embedded in code, and how this becomes like, whether it's debatable whether it's a poetry or it's a piece of source code or is it a piece of writing, right? So I'm thinking about how should we start. So let me bring out the participant list. So we have, how many of us? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we have 11. So we have 11 here. I can move this away. So
10 participants, 10.
10, okay. So we just only have 92 lines, including this bracket, you know. That's also the essence as well, up to you. See whether you want to pronounce this like semicolon or bracket, you know. So because I'm not sure how it's arranged in your screen in terms of who speak next, right? So I will start first, maybe then I will call the name, and then you try to read aloud for maybe 8 lines of code and see how it works. Is it okay? Right, let's try, okay? So I will start first, maybe, and then the next one, maybe Yale, you will be the next one because you are in the next to me. actually in my screen. So I start with the first 8 lines, right?
Wait, who did you say was the next one?
Yeah. Am I pronounced?
But can you say again what is the instructions?
So you are all with this link, right? The vocable code education, right? You all have this on your own screen, right? So you are able to see each line of the code, right? The first line, the second line, the third line, right? Can you?
So I'm not sure what you're referring to. What you are sharing currently?
I'm now sharing the screen with the vocable code, the webs right now you have, but also you can click on the link as well, which is this one. And you can click so that your own web browser are able to see the source code clearly, because I'm not sure whether you just look at my screen on Zoom is clear enough, you know.
Winnie, can I say something?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you open it up, then the voices are active, right? So it might be hard to speak over the voices.
Oh, you can actually you can see the speaker here.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can disable the voice.
Okay.
Of your browser.
Are you okay? Does that work on Chrome?
Yeah, there's like a little there's another little icon next to the URL. You can right click.
Okay, thank you. I'll try that.
So Alexa asked me to post a link. So I just want to make sure everyone is on the same page right now. So we all have the source code, right? With the vocable code, left and right version. So I will start by, so you just look at the source code side. So every line, just consider them as normal natural language, right? Just normal English, right? So I will start first, and then followed by Eva, and then Nina, Elvira, Daniel, Nadia, and then Natalia, Yuli and John, and then Sean, and then we have Alexa and Kim. Okay.
Maybe I can join as well, if I can.
Yeah. Okay, Lucas. Yeah, sure.
I will be the last one.
Okay, all right, the last one. So I start first, all right? Let with pride, semicolon. Let what is queer, semicolon. Let queer rights. Let making statements. Let be. Let voices. Let queers equal square bracket. Okay, Eva, your turn.
Function preload with pride. Load font. Gilbert type with pride. OTF. What is queer? Load JSON. Voices JSON.
And then Nina.
A function make visible. Queers equal what is queer dot queers. Let add queers int brackets random brackets 2.34387 4.34387 close brackets. For let gender equal int brackets 0.34387 semicolon. Gender is smaller than add queers semicolon gender plus plus close brackets. Let who is queer equal int random queers dot length. Making statements equal int random 2.34387 3.34387.
Yeah. Shall we have Elspeta continue? Line 21.
If queers, who is queer, dot my statement equals quotation, no quotation, making statements equals in bracket 2.34387 close bracket. Queer rights dot push new not news bracket queers bracket who is queer bracket dot your statement close bracket. Making statements equals 2.0 bracket else bracket. Queer rights dot push bracket new not new bracket queers bracket who is queer close bracket dot my statement close bracket close bracket close
Thank
bracket.
you. Daniel?
If gender equals ABS of 2, then speaking code queers who is queer dot IAM, comma, making statements, close bracket, close bracket, close bracket. Function speaking code, open parenthesis, IAM, comma, making statements, close parenthesis, open bracket, let get voice equal voices slash plus IAM plus making statements plus dot wave. Speak equals loud sounds, open parenthesis, get voice, comma, speaking now, close parenthesis, semicolon, close bracket.
Thank you. And Nadia? 38.
Function speaking now. Speak dot play. Function setup. Create canvas. Window width, window height. Function draw. Background 2.34387. For let not binary in queer rights of non-binary dot worldwide. Queer rights of non-binary dot acts. Let support equals queer rights of non-binary dot shows.
And Natalia? We can't hear you.
Yeah, I was just unmuting. If open parenthesis support equals not false, close parenthesis, open brackets, queer rights dot splice, open parenthesis, non-binary, comma, int, open parenthesis, 1.34387, close parenthesis, comma, close brackets, close brackets. If queer rights that length is less than 2.0, close parenthesis, open brackets, make visible, open parenthesis, close parenthesis, comma, close brackets, close brackets.
Thank you. And Julie and John, line 61.
Function not new, open bracket, get queer, closed bracket, open bracket. This dot size equals random, open bracket, 20.34387, comma, 35.34387, close bracket, semicolon. This dot time equals random, open bracket, 2.34387, comma, 4.34387, close bracket, semicolon. This punct y equals random, open bracket, height divided by 3.0, comma, height plus 10.3437, close bracket, semicolon. This dot x equals width divided by 2.0, semicolon. This dot gradient equals 240.0, semicolon.
Thank you. And you, Julie, you want to participate?
This dot worldwide equals function, open brackets, this dot y equals this dot time equals plus sinus radians frame count percent 360.0 times this dot time close parentheses minus 0.009 close parentheses. This dot acts equals function, text font with pride, text size, this size, text align center, this dot gradient equals 0.5, no stroke, fill this gradient, text get queer, this dot xxx, this y, close bracket.
Thank you. And Sean Sean is the next one, I think.
This shows is function, open bracket, close bracket, pointy open bracket. Let status, semicolon, if this arrow 4.34387, line, this dot arrow, height plus 10.34387, close bracket, open pointy bracket. Status is not false, semicolon, pointy bracket, else, pointy bracket. Status is not true, semicolon, close pointy bracket, return status, semicolon, set smiley, close pointy bracket.
Thank you. I think it's really great. I think I hope you enjoy as a starting, but I think it's super interesting. We will have another round later with your own statement when we play around it. So Lucas, Alexa, and Kim, we will play together later, even though we have finished the code. But there are a few things that I observe every time when we speak about this is so interesting. First is like how we think about the language, like percentage, right? But in mathematics, it's called modulo, right? And you will say arrow, but then in mathematics, it is greater than or equal, right? And Daniel, when he talked about ABS, so it's actually a function in JavaScript called absolute. So if you pronounce it as like if gender equal absolute 2, like speaking code, queers, who is queer, I am making sense. It's my favorite line actually for this piece. So, and also I think by the time when you read aloud, you also get a sense of like, oh, okay, size is kind of, some of you also pronounce, it's also very interesting, like ye, right? And some of you will say y, and ye, you know, this is also very interesting in terms of speaking, how you make it poetic, as well, this kind of speech-like qualities. And then Sean, when you talk about not false and not true, this is also something intentionally written in a way that is, you know, like a lot of us know, like in computer programming, when we use Boolean type, right? It's like, we have to make sure, okay, this is true, right? And this is a pen, it's true, right? It's not a pen, which is not true, or this is false, right? So it's a very absolute, right? Very concrete, you know, this is what it is. This is not what it is, right? So the way of how I write this piece is sort of like, if I don't use single y, if I try not to use 1 and 0, if I try not to use single x and y, if I try not to use single I, if I try not to use an integer, if I try not to use true and false as a data type, right? So how can I write about this code otherwise? And what forms of new thinking help me to think about, like, think about language, think about queer code, and also think about voices and different kinds of voices. So there's someone on the chat room asks, is there something special about the number 3.34387? Not really, actually, but it's intentionally for every number, literally every number, the decimal is 34387. So it's more for designing how you speak, because I like the fact that you need to, like, you feel difficult to pronounce decimal, right? You feel this is strange, right? So, but you're constantly encountering this strangeness, like 34387, 34387. And especially when you go down to line 62, right? Like this dot size, random, again, you know, 20.34387, 35, 34387. And then to a point when you keep repeating this, and then you start to get the rhythm. You start to get it like, it's decimal is not strange anymore. You know, you start to feel the poetic when you say the decimal. That's how I feel, you know. And I find for me, it's quite interesting about this part. And Okay, so Elspita, I have a question, like how much, in your opinion, would this poetry still be poetry if people reading it weren't involved and only computer would operate it? This is a very interesting question that you ask, because when I exhibit this piece as an installation piece, the audience who just only listen to the right-hand side, like queer and that means queer, right? These statements. And they don't hear me reading aloud the source code, right? So this is really the additional element. Like if you imagine you are in a gallery space, when you look at the two screen, right? So when you look at the source code, and I explicitly say it in the artist statement, like this is a code work. There's a tension about writing in computer language, as well as a tension in terms of this kind of constrained writing in natural language, right? And if you try to read it in your mind, right, even you will not read aloud, you also, I hope the audience will still get a sense of the poetic aspect of it. But of course, I really feel different. I hope you feel it different when you read aloud. It's really different in terms of just reading it. Maybe it is similar to the relationship between the author and the performer. Yeah. Can you elaborate a little bit about this relationship, Kim? You can speak or you can.
Yeah. I just mean like in terms of like if you saw it as poetry as spoken word, then the author and the performer, they might not necessarily be the same person if it was two people. So
yeah, you're right. That's also why I have this book that I showed you before. It's really the score and allow everyone to download for free. It's an open source book, open access book. And anyone can actually pick this up and perform actually, right? But of course, in reality, I'm not sure whether people will do it. But I'm just quite obsessed with this, thinking about how to pronounce it, to what extent I should pronounce the brackets, I feel, just now as what some of you also hesitate, okay, closing bracket, double brackets, curly brackets, parentheses, right? Also different ways of pronouncing it. And some of you skip those as well. And to what extent having these brackets as part of the reading, as part of the speaking, will add the poetic qualities to the piece. So I find this is also quite interesting to think about. Are there any questions before we move on to creating our sentence? Anything you want to share?
Maybe I have a question.
Yeah.
Because I noticed that the variables and the functions which you named in your code is named to be understandable, and it's also written for the reader because there's the meaning, isn't it? And maybe the programming language as well is also designed to be readable for some kinds of coders and programmers, to be understandable for it. So I'm not sure if this example is written just for computers, because maybe it's understandable for both sides, like for the mans and same for the computers, isn't it?
I think so. I think this is also how we call this like higher level of programming language. Like JavaScript is a high level programming language, which is like, what is the difference between low level programming language and high level programming language? So low level is something like assembly, which is more close to the machine and which is less readable for human being, right? But then for high level programming language like JavaScript, this one, especially P5 JS library that I'm using. So some of the predefined syntax also very readable, like the syntax of random, right? Or the syntax of preload, right? You kind of get a sense of this is like loading something, right? And of course, like the difficult part or the tricky part or the interesting part, I would say, is like how to mess around all these names and then it becomes part of the work. Just like this function, like absolute. So this is a function in JavaScript, but it is no use at all I mean, no use in a sense is very redundant in this program. I don't necessarily need to have this function in order to make it work like the other side, but I intentionally add it as a way to think about what does it mean when I pronounce it in this way. And even the way of how I structure the program, like, you know, if some of you have programming experience, when we have to load sound, because there are so many voices, more than 30 voices behind. So one of the way is to list out all the voices, like Winnie Soon's voice, like Daniel's voice, like Natalia's voice, like list out all the wave file. Right? But this is not how I design in doing in this way. Instead, I do it in a way it's like live. So every time when the screen show a new sentences and speak the voice, it's sort of like live in a way, like you telling the computer to go to the voices directory and then to retrieve a particular wave file. In that sense, it's sort of, I'm thinking about like this kind of non-human voice, like what does it mean by a program? Every time when you listen to the voice, like going sound, right? Then it has to execute this function, right? Speak, low sound, get voice. Every time it has to speak, dot play, speak, dot play, you know, from a computer point of view. So, and I find, to me, that is quite poetic in terms of how the program operates by itself, you know, not just necessarily what we see here, but also how it runs structurally as well. And because if you somehow know a little bit programming, you know, when you have to program something, there are a lot of different ways to approach it. Not necessarily just only one way to program this necessarily, right? But then that becomes interesting because not just only about playing with the language, but also playing around with the structure of the programming language, and to sort of tie with the theme is like how to make the speaking part more poetic, you know. And the structure of programming language is part of the work. Does it make sense to some of you? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I want to move to the next step so that we all try to think about.
Winnie, can I just make a question right now? I became very curious because you were talking about, you know, your language, Cantonese, you know, and how this there is like this influence with the language. And I've been thinking a lot about that lately also because I'm from Brazil, so I speak Portuguese, and we have a lot of, you know, this feminine, masculine, which is very strongly, which is the opposite of what you were saying.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of wondering if you have experienced this code and this project in Cantonese or in any other language other than English.
Not necessarily this one, but I know there's a project which is, I think Daniel know about it as well. So I have to go to find where is it.
Yeah, I know it goes a little bit out of, but I became curious about it while you were talking.
So there's a piece recently, Wenyin, right? Wenyin language, based on classical Chinese literature. I think I have the link.
I'm actually interviewing him right now for my blog.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Okay, you have that, right?
Here, I'm going to try to post the here's the GitHub.
Did you post it already? I can't. Oh, yes. Okay.
Oh.
So this is actually amazing, brilliant piece, I have to say, because one Wan Yan is an ancient Chinese language, which even I'm a Chinese, I find it's extremely difficult to read and also make sense of a sentence. Especially I'm more just only learning modern Chinese. But then the person actually create this using Chinese classical literature as a form of, it's a programming language in a way. So when you type like function preload, so it actually mapped to a certain kind of Chinese language, so that when you pronounce it, it's really like a literature, you know, and it's really amazing. This is like a recent piece that I see, and I find it's quite interesting. I haven't seen anything around Portuguese, but more this one in Chinese. It's super poetic. If you know Chinese, you will find it's like, how come it makes so much sense, you know? But then at the same time, again, it's like the interesting thing I find about code work, like code poetry. Like, although I know in the field of electronic literature, it is not necessarily code poetry has to be executable. But for me, what my interest lies is this kind of constraint and tension between computer programming, the language of computer programming, and the language and the natural language. But at the same time, they combine and then able to execute. So I find this challenge is super interesting for me. But if you search for code work or code poetry, you can find loads of examples online. Some might be executable, some might be not. So it's really a lot of people are working on it. It's not like I'm also following a lot of people footsteps in making this work in a way.
What I think it's also interesting, and that's also one of the reasons I have the question, is because at least for me, you know, Chinese, it also seems also as an abstract image of poetry, you know, because for me, the language doesn't make that much sense. I don't know the language, so I don't really know. So you have all these symbols, you know, with the Chinese, which is for me, you know, an abstract image, I would say. And this is also very interesting when you're talking about, you know, this whole language coding and the expression of it. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. And I saw one comment from...
Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. And one comment from Son. He talked about like think of these lines as a theatrical script too, and the brackets were like asides. Yeah. And then Alexa talked about when programming, an important part is error messages, reading and understanding them and react upon them. In the vocable code piece, the error message are hidden. Would it be interesting to include them in the piece as well? I think there are a lot of, I think there might be error as well. If you, I think there must be error. If you go to the web console, I guess. See? So it's actually, there are some security policy issue, and sometimes the voice can't really load, and I also experienced that as well, and different warnings as well. So yeah, I haven't really included like explicitly as the interface, right? Visible to the audience, unless you are sort of like a developer, know this web console, then you're sort of able to see now it doesn't work, it doesn't run at all, right? Okay. Yeah, but good idea. I will think about it.
Yeah, I was thinking about it because the left hand actually, it's editable. It's not just text. So you invite people to go into the code and edit things.
Yeah.
And like syntax errors happen all the time, and would be like, I think it would be nice to have it as a feedback channel, so you know what's going wrong.
Yeah.
Also, I think there's all, because the error messages, they're also language, and I think there could also some poetic potential in those error messages.
Yeah, good point. Yeah, thank you. So then the next thing what I want to try is go back to this GitHub link, and then we have another link. sweet dolphin called web trace. Just wondering whether you can get into on this page. So it might take some time to load. Let me smaller the screen a little bit. So what I want you to try is like go to Pond 3 and then doing part. And then there's a link called writing here collaboratively. And you need to use Chrome or Firefox. If you have ad blockers, you might have to disable it because it doesn't work with ad blocker for this open source collaborative writing software called WebTrace, developed by my colleague at Aarhus University, Clemens, and his other colleagues as well. So the idea for this, if you are on this screen, so I just have a very brief detour of this tool. So you can see, you should able to see there are a few blocks here, right? So the concept, the idea is like Post-it. So similar to Etherpad, but it's not writing line by line, but it's like creating Post-it, right? So you can actually right-click your browser, right-click your mouse, and then new test card, and then you can type something here, right? That some of you are trying to create that, right? And then you can move around, move things around, right? So some of you are starting to resize the things. So, and then on the top right corner, you can see how I move along the canvas, right? To make sure everything is on the same page. And then below this, there is a plus sign and a minus sign, which is like zoom out and also zoom in, right? So just to play around with this, and I just want to make sure everyone can get onto this page, because right now we have 12 users here. Any one of you cannot go to this?
Still trying to connect, just a sec.
Yeah. So because we are going to use this as our canvas, to create your statement, right? So to make sure I can see everyone. So the idea for this part is I want everyone, including Lukash and Anna, if you are here, Keen, Alexa, everyone, Nadia, Yuli, and John, and Natalia, everyone. Think about, I like the picture. Think about your sentence. So the rules, I put it up on the top left corner. Right now, someone changed it to green. So I can also change it to pink as well, or change it back to green. So I want you to think about a sentence. Start with queer is, right? Start with queer is. And each sentence contains no more than 5 words. So it's not like a long sentence, like a paragraph. So it's just one sentence. And you can omit the term, the starting line, queer is, like this one, this is mine. So I have not, I have not now, not close as my statement. So queer is not now, not close. So this is mine, right? So I want every one of you create your sentence, and then you can drag around. So we will play with this later. So think about what you want to create. So I try to delete those. So you can also write as well. You can also use the brush as well, but I find it's quite difficult. So that's why I just use the most basic function. Consider them as Post-it, and then you can move around. So someone wrote more than a bit. So if you are finished, I mean, then maybe you move your Post-it to the right, because I'm not sure. So because we are.
Sorry,
so,
Winnie.
Yeah.
I think I'm in a completely different canvas.
I think you are here. I think you are here, right? Okay, I move you back.
Ah.
Wait.
We're just in a different part of the page somewhere.
Yeah, because sometimes when we load, it's different, but we can actually move it back. Yep, here. We are all here. Yep, all are movable. So it should be able to cover everyone here, I think. Right. So I think it's also the one as well, right? So hello, are we on? So I think this one is more for comment, right?
That was, I think, from when we were lost, when we were on a different part of the page.
Yeah.
But now I see a blank. Like on your screen, I see everything, but on my screen, I just see a blank field.
Then you can actually, there are two here.
Oh.
The one is high. So again, I move it. So you can actually use this screen. You see the top right corner with the gray canvas. So you can move it so that you can sort of set your canvas area.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Oh, it was behind the it's behind the Zoom images. So
okay. And also this is the tool similar to Photoshop. If you have Photoshop experience, it's like if you press the space bar, you can also drag your canvas as well. You know?
Oh, nice.
Which I find, this is actually, I have to say, my first time to use this software, okay? But I just couldn't think of anything that is helpful in terms of like seeing them all, and you can move around and play with it. So there's still one here, right? It's high. So high is here. Okay. Yep. So are we, the possibility of another future, I think is finalized, right? I guess. So I just want to identify those statements are finalized. I think these are Halu, this is here, right? This is here. Are we all, this one, right? I think it's also like part of it, right? I guess. So right now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So all of us with our statement already written, right? Are we all here? Right. So maybe we start with, okay, so what's next? I have to, maybe I move this away so that we have a canvas to play with it later, right? Okay. So everyone now have a sentence. So maybe allow some time for everyone to speak about your sentence and see whether you want to say something. So the possibility of another future, who is this sentence?
I wrote that.
Yeah. Do you want to say something about that?
Not really. I mean, I guess it's in there already. I guess queerness as the kind of possibility of escaping, what we accept to be the kind of present conditions of the way that the world is.
Yeah. So I think then I believe every one sentence sort of speak by itself through the sentence, right? So what I want to try out next, okay, so I assume everyone drag their own. So make sure you can drag your own, because we can't have more than one person drag on one post-it. So make sure you can drag your own post-it. You can move it, right? Right? Everyone can do it, right? Right. Okay. So what I want to do next is think about this as a canvas. Think about this as a canvas that we are. So you saw just now with the with this one, right? With the two sides, right? There's the text going up and going down, and also pronounce. So before you pronounce the code, right? So now I want you to try to use your voice to pronounce your sentence. So the idea usually when I give the instruction for the participants who help me to complete this sentence, I give them a lot of different freedom to think about how you want to pronounce, right? So let's hear it for 60 seconds so that you get a sense of the rhythm and repetition.
Interesting. Sometimes.
A false dilemma. Changing and individual.
Forgetting to be a node.
The next generation.
Infinite.
Going south.
I like chocolate.
Not fix, not now.
Paranodal.
What I want it to be.
Infinite.
Intricacies of gray.
Fixing the binary.
Going south.
Whatever they need to be.
So this is sort of like with a lot of different repetition, right? And also rhythm and temporality, right? So I also want you to think about if you have to say about, like, have to speak aloud your sentence, how would you pronounce it, right? So it could be like you pronounce like all the words, like the possibility of another future. It could be like you just pick up one or two words that you want to read aloud, or maybe you want to sing aloud. Try your way to think about how you want to play with the sentence, right? So then the next thing is, I think this one, okay, I move it here, right? So if we imagine this is, so my screen here is the canvas, right? So like this is like, I can actually, because I can move it, right? So I can actually display it and I can think about how to pronounce it, right? For example, like not now, not close, right? And then the other one might follow. So we are trying to create a performance with 12, 13 of us, and then consider this as a canvas, and then use our hands and our mouth to move around our statement. And then you think about to what certain point that you want to read aloud. Is it when it comes to this, you want to read aloud? Or maybe you want to repeatedly read it, like not close, you know, how you want to pronounce it, right? That's the fun part, right? Do you need some time to think about it? Or shall we just try and see how it works, right? Because I think when we get started, so for me, I think my strategy, so we have a lot of strategy we can think about. The strategy is maybe there's someone like constantly doing the same thing. And then other intervene with this. Or I get it slowly, right? To try to think about like to what extent you want to intervene other voice, you want to overlay and want to have a duet with others. Does it make sense? But you need to have your microphone on to play this game. You need to have your microphone on to prepare when to read aloud your statement. So we have a lot of statement here, right? Queer is 3. Queer is questions, quotes, and quiz. So we don't necessarily need to pronounce queer is. It's just the remaining words of the sentence. Right? So now you're moving around, right? So do you want to do you want to use this as a canvas, right? We are now trying to move around like having a chaos here, right? But we need to have our voice in order to intervene this canvas, right? Similar to vocable code, right? Does it make sense? Right? So you prepare your sentence, right? And then we try to work it out together. Right? So I will try to keep saying my sentence every, 5 seconds, and then to see who else want to intervene me, all right?
Okay.
All right. Not now, not close. Not now, not close.
0 or 1, more than a bit.
Not now, not close.
Difference and multiplicity.
Not now, not close. Not now, not close. Not now,
Difference.
not close.
0 or one.
Not
More than a
close.
bit.
Possibility of another.
Not close.
Blessed.
Another.
Not
Another.
now. Not
May the
close.
Free.
open.
Another.
Not now. Not close.
Another.
Question, quote, and quiz.
Another.
Question,
Not
quote,
now.
and
Be the fruit.
Not close.
0 or 1.
Is
Smelling.
free.
May the
freedom.
Lord
Not now.
Another.
Not close.
Another.
Smelling.
Not
Another.
now.
Like
Not
freedom.
close.
blessed.
Another.
Fruit.
Not now.
Another.
Is
Not close.
May the
free.
question, quote, and quiz.
Smelling.
Another.
0
Not
or
now.
1.
Not close.
Blessed
Different.
be the fruit.
Not now. Not close.
The possibility of
May the
another.
Lord
Is
open.
Not now.
free.
Not close.
Revolutionary energy.
Another.
Not now.
Blessed.
Not
Another.
close.
Multiplicity.
Another.
Not now. Not
May the
close.
Lord
Another.
open.
Question, quote, and
Another.
quiz. Question, quote, and quiz.
Not now. Not close.
0 or 1. More than a bit.
Not now. Not close.
Smelling. Like freedom.
More than a
May the
bit.
Lord open.
More
Not
than.
now. Not close.
Another.
Not now. Not close.
More
Another.
Blessed be the
bit.
fruit.
Not
Another.
now. Not close.
Revolutionary energy.
May the
A
Lord
bit.
open.
Not
Another.
now. Not close.
Another.
Is free.
Another.
Not now. Not close.
Another.
Question, quote, and
Is
quiz.
free.
Not now. Not close.
More. More than a bit.
And quiz.
More than a bit.
Another.
Not now. Not close.
Another.
0 or 1.
Not now. Not
Revolutionary
close.
energy.
Is free.
Future.
Not now. Not close. Not now. Not close.
Blessed be the fruit.
Not now. Not close. Not now. Not close. So you sort of get, I feel it's so beautiful, don't you feel it? I feel it's really, really nice. I really like all the sound, all the voices. Amazing, actually. I mean, like, this is really my first time trying it online. You know, I never thought it's like how it works. But I feel it's just like really nice intervention, and you know, everyone have its own have their own rhythm, you know, and repetition, and it's really amazing actually. I'm just so happy about it. How do you feel actually? How do you feel about this?
Yeah, I thought it was really interesting listening to all the different, how everyone was saying it differently.
I feel queer.
Yeah,
I feel queer.
I also really like, and in a weird way, it sounds like music after some time, because you're kind of expecting someone to go and repeat the phrase again. It's
Yeah,
really nice.
yeah. So Anna, have you solved the problem about how to write in the card? Because I just saw the message, like how do you move a card? Is everyone actually able to move it? It seems, because I feel there's something actually running around here. But Yuli and John, because I haven't heard you speaking, are you all right? Maybe they are away. Ah,
Yeah, we're all right.
Yeah. Which one is yours? Is your card?
Oh, we didn't. I didn't make one for this.
Oh, okay. Do you have difficulty in making one?
I wasn't quite sure what to put.
Oh, okay. No worry. So the next, so this is sort of like the idea, get a sense of like what I mean by like having this kind of regular orderly, right? So someone keep on repeating, doing the same thing, but at the same time, there are also different kinds of randomness that we are thinking how to intervene. How should we change our voice? How should we change our, you know, the pitch of the sentence, right? And the rhythm and the temporality. And this is definitely can incorporate in the code, you know. So when you look at now when you look at this piece, then I feel it's like also slightly different ways of seeing it now, right? In a way that you experience like embodily, like reading the code aloud, but also at the same time, you also experience like if you are one of the participants who donate your voice, right? How would you play with the voice, and what are voices in this work? So they are your voices, right? Participant voices, live, right? But then it translates into a machinic voice, right? It translates into wave file, right? Lost in what has been lost, right? And then suddenly the voice using a particular line of code and then to run and then to play it out again. And what does it mean by then the computer the program which execute this line of code in order to play the sound, right? And I'm interested in having this different overlay of voices, both human and code, and also the structural wise. And of course, the fundamentally is about like also like how can we think about code differently? Is the essence about this kind of queer code beyond this kind of functional, very computer science way of applying, like has to be efficient ways of writing code, but how can we open up different possibilities of thinking with code and language? And in relation to a few things, we can try one more for the performance if you are free or if you are interested. So I have put up a few links here at the end. So in the GitHub README, the first one is I'm inviting every one of you actually. So if you want to contribute to this piece, VOCABLE code, here are the instructions, like record with your mobile phone or any recording machines, and then record your voice and then send it to me and write your statement, and then I will incorporate in the VOCABLE code because it's a continuously update software. And I'm continuously open call for voice donor to help to sort of like help me to think about what is queer, in a way. And so here are the instructions and also the email address if you are interested in participating this work. And then the second one, the second link is if you are interested in the work VOCABLE code. Jeff and I have just finished writing this chapter on VOCABLE code, so that you can really start to see a little bit deeper about the syntax, what are they, and how to use JSON, for example, and what are the concepts behind as well. So this is a link, or how you would tinker with this web version as well. And a particular font type that we use, designed by Gilbert Baker. And then also some thoughts behind as well that we just finished writing this chapter. And then the latest source code is here. So just in case if you are interested to look at it further, or I don't know, print it out and try to practice at home, I would be really interested to see how different person pronounce it or differently, and think and help everyone to think about it differently as well. Thanks, Natalia, posting the link. Do you have questions up to now? Yeah. So here we have this, right? What is there another? Wasn't there another GitLab or GitHub link? When you go to the end, so Jeff and I are now writing the book called Aesthetic Programming. So we wrote it on GitLab rather than on GitHub. So it's similar. They are both software repository, storing source code and also versioning, keep the versioning of the source code. So we are writing this book on GitLab. So It's just another link. Yeah. Okay, found it. Thanks. All right. So you have question. Do you want to try one more with the singing? Yeah. So Yuli, do you want to and join? Do you want to create a card and join us this time?
Yeah, sure. I'll make one now.
Yeah. So I try to remove this S thing first so that we have this, right? I don't know where is my statement. Ah, okay, here. Okay. So maybe someone would like to do the repetition. Is there anyone want to do the repetition? You know.
I can do it. I can do it.
Okay. Yeah.
So I'll start.
Yeah. So you just keep the repetition, and then I think everyone will try to join in the chorus.
I think that I got the right sentence for repetition.
So which one is yours, Lucas?
Question, quotes, and quiz.
Ah, okay. Okay.
Question, quotes, and quiz.
Okay. This one, right? This one. Question, quotes, and quiz, right? With the star. Okay. All right.
Good. Okay. Can I?
Yep.
Question, quotes, and quiz. Question, quotes, and quiz.
Not now, not close.
Question, quotes, and quiz.
It's
not now, not closed.
0 or 1?
Turning the tide.
The pause
is free.
Every time
different. Turning the tide.
Not now, not close.
Every time different.
0 or 1?
It's free.
More than a bit.
Question, quotes, and quiz.
Not now, not closed.
It's free.
Revolutionary energy.
More than a bit.
It's free.
Not now, not close.
0 or 1? More than a bit.
Question, quotes, and quiz.
Revolutionary
it's free.
Question, quotes,
0 or 1?
Not now, not close.
More than a bit.
Turning.
It's free.
More than.
Turning the tide. The tide.
No, not close.
Question, quotes, and quiz.
0 or 1? 0 or 1?
It's free.
0 or 1?
Question, quotes, and quiz.
Turning the tide, 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 turning the tide.
Is free.
Another.
Not close.
More than a bit.
Free.
More.
Free.
Huge.
Turning the tide.
Question, quotes, and quiz.
Different.
Turning
Free.
the tide.
Every time different.
Question, quotes, and quiz.
Not now, not close.
0 or 1?
Every time.
It's free.
Question, quotes, and quiz.
Not now, not close.
Every time.
0 or 1?
Question, quotes, and quiz.
More.
Every time.
It's free.
Revolutionary energy.
Free.
Question,
Every time different.
question, quotes, and quiz.
0 or 1 or 1 or 0 or 0 or 1 or 1 or 0 or 1 or 1
Another.
more than a bit.
Another.
Question, quotes, and quiz.
Not now, not close.
Peace. Question, forms, and peace.
Sounds good. Is it you okay? Yeah? Happy?
Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoy this performance. I really enjoy actually hearing different voices kind of going, jamming together, and also thanks everyone sort of tuning to this work as well, your patience and your care, and if you have any questions, let me know. I think that's pretty much of the workshop here. Yeah, I really love performing together. I hope we have a nice recording online.
I think so. I think it's
thank
good.
You.
Good recording for now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Winnie, as well, and thank you for introduction to VOCABLE code and this extraordinary experience. I should tell a few words in the end. I would like to invite you to the next events of Uroboros Festival, because we still have many events in front of us. Even tonight, you can watch 2 performances. The first one is a crash server live coding, and the second one is notes with the field and the system stream with the Eurico Fernandez. And moreover, we still have some free spaces for tomorrow events. And that means that there's still an opportunity to join some Saturday workshop and participate. And if you are interested in it, just visit our website and check the program section. And if you like something, so save the date and make a reservation. And don't worry, even in the case when the event is fully booked, because all events are streamed online. So anyway, it's a good idea to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So thank you once, thank you all for being part of this festival. And thank you, Winnie, once more.
And thank you, everyone. I enjoy. I think I will just play back later. Yeah. I hope to our live sort of cross passing together in the near future. See you all, hopefully online or anywhere in part of the world. Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will stop the stream now.
Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.